going to experience a thrilling shonen anime unlike any other. One that simultaneously immerses you into amazing fights, lovable characters, a soundtrack that blesses your ears, and then rips it all away. It's time for a holiday celebration. Then My Hero Academia is the anime for you. It was 1 year ago that my wife and I started watching My Hero Academia together, and just having finished season 5, I got a lot to say about the show. Look, the way I see it, My Hero Academia has 3 major problems. One of which being, as I mentioned in the beginning, the incredibly awkward and bad pacing. This is something that consistently happened throughout season to season of the show. Not sure if it's my Gen Z brain or the lack of sleep I get in a week or even the binge culture society that we live in that ruined my expectations on how a show and its pacing should play out. But there were many times that I sat there watching MHA and I just went, this feels kind of weird. Not only are some new arcs and characters introduced in very abrupt and awkward ways, but oftentimes the transitions between amazing world-altering high-stakes fights and high school festivals or holiday celebrations can rip the immersion out of anybody's hands like All for One stealing a quirk. That's the first major flaw that I see within My Hero Academia, and no, that is not the biggest flaw. Just wait till I tell you about flaw number 2 and 3. But let's start with season number 1, which I think is actually my second favorite season out of all 5 that we have so far. We're in a world where power is literally everything. Things kind of suck for this broccoli-haired boy because he's got none. I guess you could kind of say he's in a quirky situation. Izuku Midoriya, otherwise known as Deku, was diagnosed quirkless at a young age by this Professor Eggman looking man. He's pretty important for later, so I'm just gonna mark him right there, okay? And right away, you're thrown into a story where the underdog is trying to come up the best he can, but he has no tools to do so. Not only that, he's bullied every day by this goofy head looking man. His mom cries every night because she knows he's gonna be useless. For crying out loud, where is his father? But everything changes when he meets All Might. The number 1 hero, face of justice, pretty darn hot and buff, but he's got a secret. He's the physical incarnation of the stock market in 2008, just crashing. Man's losing his power quick and he needs a successor to continue on his legacy and carry on the powers. And who better than Deku? He has a big heart, he's an underdog, he's willing to save others at any expense. He's the perfect fit to eat my hair and gain my powers. He gets real strong, we have a training arc, and now we're trying to get into UA, which is a school for superheroes. Now, to this point, I am in this storyline. It's laced with some very familiar shonen aspects, but the interesting world building, the very wholesome relationships, and even down to details like how the power was transferred from All Might to Deku had me hooked. In this exam, if you kill a robot, you get points. But there's a secret. If you save other people and you're a good person, boom, 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 you get 1,000,000 points or something like that. You know who's gonna be the first person to save other people? Yep, that's right, our main character, green hair right here. He saves this girl, and she simps. But now we're in UA, everything's perfect until it's not. League of Villains. Into the first problems that we have when the League of Villains invades a training exercise for all these kids. Things are ramping up. But I gotta be honest, I didn't really care about the League of Villains that much. I didn't feel too intimidating. I don't remember being blown away by anything other than the Nomu, which was so mysterious. Just the mystery behind a Nomu and just the very odd nature of it. And then the fight with All Might and the Nomu, that's some heat. It's this moment right here that made season number 1 become my second favorite season out of all of these. Because the emotion was just so real. Not only did you have the big stakes of beating the bad guy, but we were this close from everybody figuring out All Might's little secret about him going down like the stock market. But at the end of the day, because of characters like this and like this, we were fine. All Might's secret wasn't exposed yet to everybody. And now it's time to move on to season number 2, the best season of My Hero Academia. I will not hear anybody out on anything else. This was the best season of My Hero Academia. There are so many good things to be said about the tournament arc, but the transition between season 1 and 2 were the most seamless to me. I felt like it was around this area that I realized that the power scaling for characters like Deku were very realistic, and I was all for that. Obviously, we had learned before in season 1 that if Deku tries to use his new power in full capacity, he will harm himself, like really bad. But in season 2, we actually got to see this as a challenge. It was a very realistic take on an extreme power that a kid couldn't wield yet. He had to meticulously use it at the right times to put himself ahead little by little to advance through this tournament. And for the most part, he did a good job, other than when he talkie to this man. Don't talkie to this man. You will bend to his will. Shinso is one of the coolest characters that I feel like needed so much more love in this series. But a really interesting moment that you'll notice here, Deku was about to lose his match. There was a little thing in the corner of the hallway. Yeah, it looks like other people who've probably had my power before. Are those ghosts? We'll talk about them later. And this is what I'm saying about season 2, man. Not only was it a good transition, but they did executed foreshadowing very well. The power scaling was appropriate. There was some really heavy emotional elements added with the Todoroki family story. By the way, I hated Endeavor at first. And no, I'm not going to talk about Deku and Todoroki's fight yet. I'm going to talk about Hatsume. A lot of people look over Hatsume. Pretty sure she's the thumbnail of this one. I'm sorry I clickbaited you, by the way. Now, what I'm about to say is going to be a little confusing because it's my second complaint of the whole 3 that I have. And it's also a really good thing. So number 2 of the flaws within MHA is there's just so many darn characters. I feel like because of this, there's not a lot of time to really develop great characters like Hatsume or Shinso. Don't get me wrong, I know we're in a high school. I mean, there's gonna be a lot of kids no matter what. That's the point. I oftentimes felt myself just neglecting a lot of characters and caring about them because it's just too darn many. Even though it's a flaw, I also love the characters that they did introduce, like Hatsume. She's incredibly smart to the point in which she didn't even want to fight anybody. She just wanted to showcase her babies. Get that major bag alert. Side rant over, the fight between Deku and Todoroki was the cherry on top for this season. You got the music, you got the animation, you got the feels, the emotional drive, the main character inspiring other characters, everything you want for a perfect shonen anime, all in a little nice package. But things are all happy, exciting, and epic for too long because Ida's brother done lost his legs. Got my boy. By they, I mean Stain. This is the first instance in which I felt like a new, really random villain showed up. I was really preoccupied in the thought of the League of Villains. And now we just have this new guy, Stain, who wants to eliminate all fake heroes, which really makes him not like a bad guy, but he's a bad guy. But he's not like a bad guy. The show enjoys giving you an issue and just giving you a couple more out of nowhere. So it can get a little convoluted for someone like me who dropped out of college. But the only other things that I think happened in season 2 were the internships. So obviously Deku got more control over his power with Gran Torino. And all of the ending fights with the Nomus were very interesting and only added more fear and mystery around these mysterious creatures. So I feel like season 2 ended on a high note, setting us up pretty well for the future, whatever the league was planning. Season 2 of MHA is the best season of MHA. Please add me on Twitter and follow me. That'd be really cool if you did that. But now it's time for summer camp! Woo! We're gonna have fun by the pool, we're gonna roast some marshmallows, and then never mind, we're gonna have to fight things that are way stronger than us. See, my biggest problem with season 3 is that we're going to summer camp when no moves are on the loose, the League of Villains are nowhere to be found. We just fought Stain in another city a couple months ago, and we did not have a lot of adults with us. I know that they are strong and confident heroes. Don't you think sending a couple of extra heroes would have been helpful? A little bit? Nope, I guess not. This is where chaos ensues. The summer camp, which is going pretty nicely so far, was completely ransacked by the League of Villains. Even though this is very chaotic and stressful, we got some awesome fights from this, like Deku versus Muscular. Dude does not skip arm day. But after all of the chaos of the camp, Bakugo is kidnapped. Here it is, what everybody talks about when you talk about MHA. All Might went up against All for One. If there was a Mount Rushmore for impactful MHA moments, this would definitely be one. That music, do you hear that? Oh my gosh, he's coming for you. Oh my god! Good bit. This is not our first interaction with All for One. I didn't really mention it with season 1 and season 2. It definitely was a lingering presence, but to see him come out, step up against All Might, what a moment. That reaction that Colette and I did was one of our best, I think, but for good reason. This is one of the best moments in My Hero Academia for sure. I think for me, it's less of a great moment because of the fight and more of what the aftermath was like. All Might standing there and then pointing back at the camera, only for Deku and Bakugo to be looking and know what he means. Emotion just busts out of me like a fruit gusher. When the fight was over and all the dust had settled, All Might had become Small Might. The stakes have risen 10 times higher. Now with the #1 hero gone, who's going to take the place? And also, what does the future of heroes look like? I mean, this is like the #1 guy. This is the creme de la creme. How can we compare? How can we match up? Are you telling me this guy is going to be the next #1 hero? He beat his family. Season 3 wraps up with the UA heroes trying to get their heroes' provisional license. Everybody passes except Todoroki and Bakugo, because they are stubborn. I thought all of these fights were pretty fun, but the only really notable thing that I'll mention from this was when Kami, aka Toga, disguised as Kami, got all up on Deku. Chako gonna be mad jealous when she watches this video and sees this footage. And just like that, he blinked and we're in season 4. Season 4 gets regarded to by so many MHA fans as one of the best. And while I think there are some great moments, the season to me felt like I went to a restaurant, ordered a Sprite, and they gave me a Coke. Like, it was good, but like it's not what I was wanting or expecting. From what I can remember, watching season 4 and having Overhaul introduced just felt so abrupt. Yes, it was a really cool storyline and the fights were amazing, but I can't get away from the feeling that it just was out of place. Like, out of nowhere, after everything with All for One and Toga sneaking into the hero's provisional license exam, we not only have a new bad guy, but we have a new organization that also want to take over the world. How they were introduced after the focus on everything else felt weird to me. Does anybody else agree? Even though the area retrieval arc did feel a bit out of place, I was heavily invested. My favorite moments of this arc in season 4 was definitely the Kirishima and Fat Gum fight, and of course the final fight with Eri as a backpack on Deku fighting against Overhaul in the sky was amazing. Despite all the gripes that I have about the story writing, everything in this moment was truly My Hero Academia. Underdogs rising up, going beyond your limits, and blasting your ears with some banger music. I was so hyped after that fight that I just blasted the music out of my house for like 4 hours after the stream. My neighbors called the cops. Yeah, I went to jail for 2 days. It was worth it. But you know what? Even though I had a lot of complaints about that arc and how abrupt it was, it's over and we're ready just to continue building on everything and... Oh, we have a school festival now. Okay, we have a school festival. Right now, after all that, there's no like investigation anymore to the League of Villains, like immediately after. We're going to go to a school festival and sing. And I get that they're kids in high school and they're doing normal things like having festivals, celebrating holidays. I understand, but we just got done with some of the biggest stuff in the show yet. And we're just gonna go... It was wholesome, it was fun, but I did not find it very necessary. However, I do relate a lot to Gentle Criminal. I also want you to like this video or else I'm going to commit more crimes. They ended off strong though with the new rankings of the top heroes. And not to mention, this is where we met the very important Hawks. After the hero rankings, Endeavor and Hawks were attacked. And all of a sudden, everything that was previously annoying me was out of my mind because I was locked into this fight. This was not only a fight for Endeavor to prove he's the new #1 to stay, but it was also the first step into being somewhat of a good dad. Season number 5! Going into season 5, I didn't really have high expectations. I had heard it wasn't as good as season 4, and I didn't really love how season 4 played out. I knew there would be some good moments, but I definitely had my guard up going into this final season. And I can confidently say now that I left season 5 more ready for 6 than ever. What I just said about Endeavor trying to become a good dad and the #1 hero in the right ways was further expanded upon, and I love how they did it. It took a character that I at one point hated and made me love. At the end of the day, he's just a human being, a man who's made some major mistakes trying to make them right, being met with a lot of problems along the way. While season 5's pacing wasn't the best, it's what came at the latter end that really had me hooked. My Villain Academia, the darkest version of the show that we have seen yet. Before we hop into all the good things about this arc, I do gotta say the Liberation Army did feel a bit sudden again, but I do think it's better than Overhaul's introduction or Stain's. They had these mysterious clues that involve Hawks and the books and so many people already joining this movement. Let's talk about it, man. You remember this man right here? Diagnosed Deku as quirkless? He's doing something to Shigaraki! Know that the anime onlys also are still confused on this, but man, when I realized that this guy right here was the same guy as this guy, my brain was forming 3,000 theories per minute. Coincidence? I think not. Season 6 gonna be crazy! Bread and the butter at the end of the season was Shigaraki's terribly twisted and dark backstory. The abuse he suffered through was terrible, but his response to it was even worse. While he was completely obliterating his entire family and his dog, Coletini's jaws were on the ground. My Hero Academia has changed. A very consistent complaint that we had through our watch through is that the show sometimes is just a little too lighthearted. Man, did we get what we asked for when the darkness of that episode hit. That single-handedly elevated the season so much higher for me. Now with the League of Villains coming out on top over the Liberation Army and in the midst of society, things are gonna get crazy. We're literally blending in, ready for a takeover in season 6, and a war is coming. I guess the only thing I didn't mention from season 5 is the vestiges thing that's going on with Deku is also very fascinating. I guess it's a very important part to mention, sorry about that. But we learned recently that Deku actually has connection with prior owners of One For All inside of his mind and body or consciousness. And all of their powers are now gonna be his powers as long as he can unlock them. He does with the Black Whips, but it almost goes wrong. And as we end everything off, there was a conversation between All Might, Deku, and Bakugo at the very end because Bakugo learned, like in season 3, where Deku's power comes from. And this is where my final complaint comes in. I feel like a lot of the characters remain the same constantly. Sometimes that's a good thing, but I think in cases like Bakugo or Mineta, it can straight up just get a bit exhausting. Now I understand that the whole entire time period of season 1 to 5 is only like a year and a half, so they haven't had a lot of time to develop out of these same tropes that they keep going through. But the same old personality with Bakugo, even in the midst of serious situations at the end of season 5, where they're having this conversation about all of Deku's powers and being concerned, he's still able to sit there and go, "Ah, stupid Deku." It just was exhausting. You know, I like the character, I enjoy Bakugo, but I can't lie. Whenever I saw him or characters like Mineta on the screen, I usually knew how the dialogue would go. I know there's a lot of Bakugo fans out there, and I am one of them, so do not kill me. But you gotta admit, the guy repeats himself a lot. All in all, I love My Hero Academia. Season 1 and 2 were staples that made me so drawn to this franchise, and everything else has been pretty solid. Hopefully you enjoyed this breakdown and review. Now, if you excuse me, I have some hair to go eat.